Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Write or Die Show. I'm your host, Randi-lee. On today's episode, I'm going to be talking to Mickey. And so if you haven't hit that like and subscribe button, do it right now, wherever the button is on whatever you are listening to or watching this on. Hit that button, follow us, never miss an episode. Oh, man, I was just like, well, actually, at that time, I was probably about walking my dogs, but yeah, no, too early.
4 a.m. Yeah.
Yeah. Too early. I'm cuddled up in bed.
No.
But always great to have another Canadian on the show. I love it. I also love having like the European, Australian, like just because there's so many of the Americans on the show that it's so much fun to have like the different cultures. I love it. So tell us a little bit about who you are.
Well, I'm a book publicist in Canada. I own Creative Edge Publicity. I have over 100 represented authors with New York Times bestsellers, USA Today bestsellers, international bestsellers in all genres, and I also am the sole publicist for 6 small press publishers.
Oh, 6 of them? I didn't know
that. Yeah, it's 6.
Oh, nice. So that's what you do, but who are you?
Oh, who am I?
Who?
Well, I'm a crazy Canadian from Alberta who gets up at 4 a.m. every day, who's all about music and comic books. And well, I currently have 4 cats. So figure that one out.
I have
4 too. 3 of which, actually, it's a lie. I have 5 cats, 3 of which will be going away very, very soon. Hi. Because my cat had kittens.
Oh, mine are all fixed. No kittens here.
Yeah, no, she had kittens. So 3 of them are going away and I'm going to keep 1.
Okay.
Keeps following me around, won't leave me alone. So I adopted it.
Oh my goodness. I love it. Yeah. When I was in high school, I had a cat, and before we managed to get her fixed, she got pregnant. My mom's like, we're not keeping all the kittens. I'm like, but Mom, because we can keep 1. It's fine. She only ended up having 1 that survived, so didn't have to worry about it. She was very, very small, and she was a very petite cat. So I think she had 1 survive, and I think she only had 1 other one that didn't. Like, it wasn't like she had a big litter. Yeah.
Well, I got the mom off Kijiji, and the family I got him from didn't even know she was pregnant.
Oh, so you got her while she was pregnant?
Yeah. So we kept feeding our purebred Bombay, because that's what she is. And we kept wondering why she's gaining so much weight. And we got her probably in late April. June 13th, I hear a yelp from my bedroom. And next thing you know, 4 little kittens have like exploded onto my bed.
Oh my gosh. You need
and I didn't even know about it.
Oh my goodness, that's hilarious.
Yeah,
but they're so precious little babies.
Now we know why you've gained weight, and I can continue feeding you in the pattern I have been.
Oh my goodness. That's a pleasant surprise.
It was okay. I live in an apartment. My landlord is pretty relaxed about it, so it's all good.
Yeah.
What is he going to do? Evict me over 4 cats? I don't think so.
Right?
That are going to be gone away in like 10 weeks.
So, exactly. Yeah. It's not like you were like, it'd be great if I just had a whole bunch of cats forever.
It would. Yeah, that's not going to happen. I would go squirrely because as much sleep as I'm not getting, because I only get 4 hours anyways. You got to think I'm only getting really 2 hours because there's like 4 kittens jumping all over my bed because it's peak hour energy time for them.
I don't sleep with any of my cats anymore because of the dogs, so I have all the dogs with me.
Oh, lucky you.
There's just enough room for me.
Yeah.
And then the dogs.
Yeah.
So my husband gets relegated upstairs with the cats.
So that's my story: books, music, cats, and well, I have a 15-year-old autistic daughter as well.
And that segues into our topic today. So we are going to talk about raising kids with autism, because it's, as everybody who watches the show knows, near and dear to my heart. I always like to preface this for anybody who hasn't watched the show before. I realize autism is not a mental health disorder. It is a developmental, I just lost my train of thought. It's developmental, right? So I do realize that, but it is near and dear to my heart. So we talk about it. That's the joy of being the host of the show. You do what you want. So so you said 15-year-old daughter, right?
Yeah.
And I know that girls are often harder to get diagnosed than boys. Boys are often diagnosed earlier. When did you finally have the diagnosis?
It's a complicated story because we were living in Saskatchewan. Ezra was probably about 5 years old, and she was struggling in kindergarten. She was asked to do patterns, and the teachers gave her fail marks for not doing patterns the right way. And she did patterns, just not the way that they wanted her to do it. But in her mind, it was patterns.
Yep.
And then there was a couple of meltdowns, and she continually was lining things up, and the other kids weren't understanding why she was doing that and all this kind of stuff. So multiple meltdowns came down. We ended up getting like a learning coach with her, and that learning coach has 3 autistic children.
Oh,
so
good. So they know.
She knew exactly what had to be done. At the time when we were living in Saskatchewan, there did not have a support system for autism in Saskatchewan. And so this learning coach said, you need to get coded and you need to get support and all of that, but you can't do it here. You need to move to Alberta. So I found a job that was actually hiring me for the Alberta marketplace, which I'm no longer with, but through that move, we actually moved to Alberta. And within 2 months of us moving to Alberta, we had been coded. We had a psychologist talk with her and get documentation down. And from grade 1 onwards, she had a special ed in class. So she's gone to regular school. She's high functioning, all of that. The problem, though, is, and this maybe segues a little bit, I don't know which other question could be, Randy, but the problem is with high functioning autistic kids, it's harder to parent them, in my opinion, than it is with kids who are full blown autistic, because you, number one, never know what's going to set them off. And number two, you never know what they are thinking, because, I mean, they're verbal, they talk, they're highly intelligent, they do all these things. But if you're putting their clothes out at age 6, and this happened to me, if you're putting their clothes out at age 6 and you forget one sock, it turns into a full day meltdown. And you don't know as a parent how to handle that, because it's throwing stuff, it's hitting walls, it's kicking, it's multiple tears all day over one sock that wasn't put out in the area where it's supposed to be. So welcome to high functioning autism.
So there's a lot to unpack there. Okay, so just so everybody who's watching, who's listening is on the same page, my son, he's transgender, so I'm gonna say girl back in the day because that's when he was diagnosed. So again,
my daughter's non-binary as well, actually. It's crazy.
Perfect. Yeah, I like the cup. So that's why I was saying I know that girls are harder usually to get diagnosed, because girls, and if anybody hasn't seen any of my TikToks, guys, I got diagnosed last year. Yay, finally. Life makes sense. So it takes a long time because we pretend to fit in. We try to mask much more than our male counterparts when it comes to autism. At least that's what the research says. And so for my kid, it wasn't until he was finally 8 that they finally gave the diagnosis. And we went through ADHD, we went through oppositional defiant disorder. There was a bunch of other ones now that I can't remember because this is 7 years ago, but they just kept putting every other label, sensory integration disorder, every other label that all could be explained by autism. They just didn't want to put that label on him at first. And And unfortunately, so I'm in Ontario, and it's funny when you were talking about how
Yeah.
Saskatchewan, you were told, oh, we don't have anything here, move to Alberta. So I've heard
They
a lot of
don't.
good, yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about Alberta.
It's the best province in Canada for autism support.
It is. That's what I've heard. But I find it funny because so many people in Ontario are always complaining about our services here. And I'm not saying they're the best, but hearing you say Saskatchewan has nothing, Ontario's doing pretty good then, right?
Yeah,
We
I
have
mean,
something.
right. And I want to preface that though, Randi-lee, because at the time, Saskatchewan didn't have anything.
Yeah, they probably have
They
things
are
now.
they are starting to just, I believe, just starting to get that. And
Yeah.
honestly, with the coding of my daughter, that wouldn't have happened without the learning coach, because she had people she could leverage to help us get where we needed to be.
Yeah. And that's really
So,
important, is having the support system, finding the right people to then help
Yeah.
you. Because even when my kid was diagnosed, it was like, okay, now what? I have no idea now what. Like, yay, we have a reason for all these meltdowns, because he was the same thing. All meltdowns over, I don't know. And I don't know how you feel about this question, but doctors and therapists and teachers would always go, well, what do you think is the setting them off? What do you think is the cause of this meltdown?
Oh,
Right? Exactly. I'm like, if I knew that, we wouldn't be having meltdowns, because we could, arrange life without it.
I'll tell you a quick story if I can.
Yes.
If I can, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm very scarred when it comes to the education system. And the reason for that is my daughter's special aid and my daughter's teacher. I had a meeting with them once, and she was probably in grade 4 or 5 or 6 or something. I don't remember the year. But during that parent-teacher meeting, they told me, with my daughter sitting there, your daughter will never learn calculus. Your daughter will never read proper English. Your daughter will never be at the stage where she's academically the same as other kids because of her ADHD, her autism, all of that. You know what I did, Randy? I asked the special aide, who's supposed to be her advocate.
Yeah.
I asked the special aide to leave the room. I said, You're telling me in front of my kid that she's never going to be able to do calculus? You can leave. I don't want to talk to you right now. Go away.
Yeah.
And she left in tears. And then I continued on with my parent-teacher meeting with the teacher. And I said, do I need to escalate this? Because this is a defeatist aspect.
Mm-hmm.
And for you to say it in front of my kid with me sitting here, sorry, that doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
She's in high school now.
Yeah.
Top 90s in math.
Woohoo!
Reading top 70s, top 80s in social studies. Reading English. She read 4 books this summer.
Nice.
So to anybody listening out there, if parents or teachers or educational experts tell you your kid can't do these things, it is BS.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to be so viable and vibrant about this.
Oh,
but
you're saying it nicer than I would.
It just gets me fired right up.
Yeah.
And the thing with this aide was, she came up to me after and she's like, I've never had a parent ask me to leave a meeting before. I'm like, yeah, I've never had an aide deface my child in front of their teacher before and their parent before.
Yeah.
So
that story just,
the mindset ticks me off.
Oh, I know. That story reminds me of so many meetings that I had with my kid, but one in particular popped into my mind that I want to share on this whole school thing, because same thing, school, they like to tell you what they can't do. They don't like to help them actually achieve what they can do. It's so frustrating. So he was, this was grade 5, and he was in a section 23 classroom. So what that means basically is it's a classroom outside of the norm. They don't like to call it segregated. Yeah. That's what it is.
Of course they don't.
So it was because there were so many meltdowns in the previous schools. And by this time, this would have been his fourth school in grade 5. Because that's what our school system like to do, is just go to a different class, go to a different school.
Horrible.
Right? Like, people with autism, we need routine. And by changing it constantly, at no point was he ever settled into a class to feel secure enough to then be able to learn. But let's just keep putting him in different class. Anyways, whole other story. So he's in this class, and he had brought a butter knife to school the one day because he said he didn't feel safe there. And actually seeing all the other kids there, this was the school that they put the behavior kids, not just autism, but literally just kids that had really severe violent behaviors, and they put them all in the same class. Yeah, there was police there and ambulances there on a regular basis. So again, not good for a kid that sponges up everyone else's behaviors because they're trying to fit in. So they're, if everyone else is acting violently, then I'm gonna act violently too, or I'm gonna protect myself. And so anyway, so the school calls and they say, hey, we need to have a meeting about this and a few other things. I said, okay, great. When is it? And then they said, but we don't want Levin to come. And I'm like, excuse you? So you want me to talk about him? And again, grade 5. So it's not like, and I have always said that as long as my kid can advocate for himself, I have done a good job as a parent, because it is a harder struggle. It's going to be harder for him as he gets older and wants to find a job and do those other things, because social skills are lacking. It's not to say he can't do it, but it's going to be a little bit trickier, right? And so I said, so you want me to go there and talk about him behind his back and make decisions unilaterally for him? They're like, well, we just thought it would be best if he wasn't there. Like, they didn't know what to say to me. I said, no, he's going to be there. This is a meeting about him. Why would he not be there? It doesn't make sense. And and oftentimes in meetings, he would be there unless he chose not to come. If he chose not to come, that's fine, right? But I've always been very much, okay, I want to talk to you about this, because he's in high school now. He's going into grade 11 this year. Okay. And even when we're talking about, hey, what courses do you want to take next semester? I talk to him. Do you want to take this? Do you want to take that?
We do the same thing. I do the same thing.
Because and even if you come across a child who is nonverbal, they can still answer you in a different way. So I was interviewing somebody else on the show last year, and she said, it's not nonverbal, it's non-vocal. Have you heard that term?
I have.
Yeah. That was the
100%.
first time I had heard it last year, and I'm like, that's the best. So for those who have not heard that term, non-vocal means you're not talking, you're not saying the words, but there's other ways you can talk, right? Body language. I mean, I do it all the time. I'm a hand talker. Pointing to things, being able to point at pictures, writing out words. Like, there's a lot of ways that you can communicate without words.
Yeah, it's this whole thing, it just drives me batty, because people, number one, don't understand. People, number two, don't want to take the time to understand. And number three, people just want to put categories on these kids because they don't know how to deal with that. I've had multiple times where I've gone shopping with my daughter for clothing or accessories at Claire's or Ardeen or whatever.
Yes.
And she'll just walk around for hours on end. And the staff are like, well, why is she taking so long? I'm like, does it matter?
Yeah.
She's a customer. She's a customer. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And then I say, well, she's got autism and ADHD, so it takes her a long time to process.
Yeah.
And the staff are like, she doesn't look autistic. I'm like,
oh my gosh.
Can you tell me what autism look like? Can you tell me what autism looks like?
Yeah.
Like, it drives me batty. Like, it really does.
Yeah.
So yeah, people need to try to understand what these kids are going through and what they think about, because it's a completely different way to look at life. Yeah. And it's so refreshing. I mean, always people, whenever I tell somebody new that I meet that my daughter's autistic, the first thing they say is, I'm sorry. I'm like, why are you sorry?
Right.
Well, she has a disease. I'm like, she doesn't have a disease. Yeah. She has a different way of thinking and a different way that she lives. And that's all it is.
Yep. Exactly.
Drives me nuts. Me nuts.
Yeah. at my old job, this is probably, I haven't been there for 4 years. So this is going back at least 7 years, probably close to when Levin was first diagnosed. And Levin went through a period of time where he was, well, violent meltdowns outwardly, and then it turned inwardly. And so there was a lot of self-harm and suicide attempts. And so I had taken time off work to go to the hospital and different appointments. And then the one day I'm in the staff room, the like little kitchenette, and one of the people there, she's like, "Oh, how's your kid?" And I'm saying, you know, he's in the hospital now, he's doing much better, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, "I don't know how you do it. I hate that. I don't know how you."
Oh.
I do it because it's my kid and I love him. Like, and then I looked at them, I go, I'm not really sure what you mean. I have to do it. And for me, I do have a stepdaughter, but at the time she wasn't living with us. So we did have her every weekend, but it's not the same as having your kid full time, right? And I go, I don't have anything else to compare it to. Like, I don't have an older neurotypical child to be like, oh yeah, that one was so much easier. Because to be honest, actually my stepdaughter, when she did move in with us and stuff, the neurotypical kid, so much more difficult. So like, it's just like every kid is unique and every kid is different. So I just, I hate that. And she's not the only one that has said that to me, but that's my pet peeve is, I don't know how you do it.
Well, what else are we going to do? Not do it?
Right? I don't know.
Really? Like, really? I mean, yeah, I mean, the self-harm thing happens. My daughter's cut multiple times.
Yep.
So it's because she can't feel things. So the only way to feel is to actually self-harm or cut. So we gave her a pen instead. It's almost like she's got writing tattoos all over because she's writing stuff on whatever, right? So there's ways around stuff. There's ways around stuff. You just got to find the tools to make that happen.
Yeah. And that's a really good point. You got to find the tools. You got to find what works for them. Because, I mean, every person is different. But there's that saying where if you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person. Because it's such a very wide spectrum. And like you said, you can't just look at a person and know if they have autism or not. It's not like, you know, if somebody's in a wheelchair. And even then, I mean, you don't even know. Most people in wheelchairs still have some ability to walk. It's just they don't have the ability to walk long enough distances, or they need extra support, right? So you still can't really know, but you know that there's something, right? Whereas you look at somebody with autism sometimes and you cannot tell at all, and then they say something completely out of the blue or do something that you're like, what?
I love it though.
I know.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
You know, I feel blessed to have my daughter in my life because she gives me total different perspectives on things. It's great. Yep.
My kid used to always say when he was younger, you always have 3 choices in life. Because I'd be like, you need to clean this up now. And he's like, no. Okay, you can clean this up or you can go to your room. No. Okay, well, those are your 2 choices. No, there's always 3 choices. And I'm like, okay. And the third choice would usually be like the one that you would never think of because it was so crazy. Like, why would anyone think to just leave? Like, he'd be like, I could just leave. You're 6. You can't just leave. I could. Like, granted, technically, yes, you could just leave and then I'd have to go after you and bring you back. But yes, technically you are right. There are 3 choices. You could.
It's like, true. It's 100% true.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but
no, for sure.
That outside the box thinking is not something that we always, that's why it's outside the box. Really.
That's right. And
so for
Yeah.
Anybody listening right now, what would you tell them if they are, I don't want to use the word suspicious because that sounds like mean, but like if they are considering that their kid may have autism, what's your advice to them?
From what I've learned in this, and granted, I mean, I'm not an expert. Let's face facts. I didn't go to school for this. I don't have a PhD. Yeah, we're just parents. But if parents suspect things, read, do your research, look for the signs of things that trigger autism. Like with our daughter, we suspected things when she started lining up Legos, or she started lining up her teddy bears or her pillows, and then would get upset when we moved one of those items away from her from a game. Like lining up things when she was really, really young was a big trigger for us,
Yeah.
first and foremost. Other things would be looking at life and how they interact. I mean, because it's different. And the responses, like you're talking about, I could just leave. Well, yeah, that's an autism response to having solutions. So if there's anything like meltdowns over little things that seem minuscule, or lining up things, or things like that, I think it's worth it to research that, because the earlier you catch this, at least you know what you're facing then, and it's going to be a lot easier to parent down the road, because once you know what you're up against or up with, then you can make a platform and make a battle plan to make sure that the transition and the parenting is not smooth sailing, because it never will be, but just easier going forward.
Yeah, you can put all the supports in place.
You can. And to that point as well, Rand, never give up. Fight for your supports.
Yeah.
You're paying for healthcare or whatever it is in Canada. You're justified in getting this. You deserve it.
Yeah.
So fight for it, and don't let people tell you differently. Yeah. You're gonna have to fight all the way through.
And that's a big one, is fight for it. And unfortunately, not everyone can pay for it while you're waiting on a wait list. We were lucky enough. Yeah. Well, not when he was first diagnosed. When he was first diagnosed, we were broke because we were, young college students. But now in the last, I'd say 2-3 years, we're able to say, okay, you know what? While we're on this wait list for speech therapy, at least we can take him to the therapist to work on his PTSD right now. Like, so we're able to at least accommodate some of the stuff that we needed, because really doing all the therapies at once is very overwhelming anyways.
For sure.
So while we're waiting for the one, okay, we can do the other, which is nice.
Yeah. And I mean, for parents who are looking at this, and if their children become, like, if they're autism, if their children are autistic, look at it as a blessing. Don't think, oh my God, what am I going to do? Or, oh no. Yeah. No. Don't think of it that way. Think of it as a blessing, because it really is.
Yeah.
It's a different way of life, and just amazing.
Yeah. Yes, our brains are very cool.
Well, and not only that, but hearts of gold. Like,
yeah,
kids with autism, all they care about is the right things to do.
Yeah.
I mean, our daughter has picked up garbage off the ground just because.
Yeah.
It's the right thing to do. So she'll do that. Or, have a sense of loyalty towards people and just kindness.
And it's so funny
there's no anger. There's no hate. None.
Yeah. It's so funny that you say that, because when I was first researching autism, when he was first diagnosed, like you said, research, read, I was all about doing that. And I kept seeing articles about how, yes, people with autism do have empathy. They do have, like you said, hearts of gold. It's just that you can't always see it immediately. And so there's this assumption that we're like cold-hearted or something. And it's like, no, not at all.
It's the opposite.
Yeah, we just show it in a different way, really.
Yeah.
There was something else that popped. Oh, so we're talking about reading. So a really good book that I read early on was, what was it called? The Explosive Child, I think it was.
Yes, I know that book.
Yeah, so good. I definitely recommend that to anybody who, if you're waiting for a diagnosis or you're struggling with your kid, because it really taught me, because this was before he had the diagnosis of autism. And I'm like, hey, the regular forms of discipline aren't working. Why aren't they working? Right.
Yeah.
And so I read this book and I was like, oh my gosh. It's because he's not intentionally doing these things to be bad. He's doing them because he's overwhelmed. He's communicating with me in the only way that he knows how right now, by yelling, by screaming, by throwing, by having a by having a meltdown, not a temper tantrum, by having a meltdown. And so I was like, oh my goodness, this explains so much. And it really, really helped me to be able to communicate with him. So yeah, The Explosive Child, something Green wrote it. I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember, but I know the book.
Yeah, The
And you're
Explosive
right.
Child.
I mean, regular discipline doesn't work. Yelling will never work. Physical will never work because they think differently.
Yeah.
That's not all it's going to do is cause more meltdowns and fear. It's going to cause fear. You don't want that.
Yeah. I remember when I was little, and I was super verbal, clearly, and had some friends at school and got good grades and stuff. So that's why it took me so long to get diagnosed, because especially 30 years ago, it wasn't, you didn't really see the kid who was doing well in school as one that had issues. Right. And
right.
Nobody can go inside of my brain. And when I'm asked broad questions, I tend not to be able to answer them. I need very specific kind of questions, which as an adult, I've learned now. So I can say, can you make that more specific? But as a kid, I'd be like, I don't know. So if it's like, oh, how are you feeling? Good. Like, because it's not specific, right? But if it's like, are you feeling overwhelmed right now? I could have said, yeah. But just how are you? Oh, fine. I don't know. Right. So I can remember my mom not knowing how to deal with my meltdowns. And so she would put me in my room and hold the door shut because she didn't know what else to do to protect me from, throwing things, from hurting myself, that kind of thing. So being in my room was a safe place, and she didn't know what else to do. Right. And when my kid was younger, I was like, oh my, you're just like your mom. You're just like your mom. Like people would be like, this isn't normal. Kids shouldn't do that. I'm like, what do you mean it's not normal? This is what I was like.
Yeah.
So you do the best that you can at the time. But now with Google and stuff, we're able to get a lot more resources. Like my mom would talk to the doctor and say, she's very behavioral. Oh, just a kid. Okay.
It's true. And I mean, for our kids, high school's hard enough. Ugh. There's lots, and I don't know how it is with boys. I've just seen lots of stuff with girls, and I hate to broaden it, but I'm gonna do that. There's lots of cattiness. There's lots
Girls
of backstabbing.
Are the worst.
There's lots of backstabbing. There's lots of not understanding. Our daughter has written off pretty much all of her friends because her friends lied to her, backstabbed her.
Yep.
They wanted to play games with her because she thinks differently, all of that. And our advice to her was, you know what? Write it off. Find people who appreciate you and value you. And if they don't appreciate you and value you, then they don't deserve to be around you.
Yeah.
And she's done that. Like, she's written off all of her friends and gotten new ones.
Good.
And the new ones are ones that identify who she is and provide value to who she is.
Oh, good.
And that's what counts the most.
It
right?
is.
So
yeah, finding really good, true friends is so hard. Like,
it is as adults too, but I'm just
that's what I was gonna say. Even as adults, I have friends, I have acquaintances, but I mean, my really, really good friends that I can actually be my true, whole, crazy self that I am, I can count on one hand.
Yeah, it's sad that happens, actually.
Yeah. And yeah, in high school, oh my goodness, that's why I skipped a lot, right? And I was lucky that my mom, she let me skip, with a couple of rules. She had to know where I was. Basically, if you're not at school, you're at home. You're not going out gallivanting. That's her favorite word to say as a teenager.
Which you wouldn't have done anyways.
Nope. And you can't fail. Right?
Yeah.
So if you're going to not be in class to hear the instructions, that means that you better be able to do the work at home. And so I stayed home and I passed all my courses.
Good for you.
Because going to
there's
school.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No. Now, though, there's this term, school refusal. Have you heard that one yet?
No.
Okay, so there's been some newer research. I can't remember where I first heard it, but there's been some newer research around school refusal, which isn't the same as just skipping. So I definitely had more of a school refusal than a skipping. So skipping is more like, I just don't want to go to school. School sucks. I'm just not going to go. I would rather be at the beach. And so you just don't go and you just don't care about school. Whereas school refusal is more of a, going to school makes me overwhelmed. It makes me anxious. It makes me depressed. It's very difficult to do. I don't want to do it because it really is a struggle to do it. And so it's not that you don't want to learn. It's not that you don't want that information. It's that it's so difficult to get out of the door and into that school that it's easier to stay home.
Yeah.
And I when I first read that, I was like, this is so much better than just saying, oh, this person skips all the time, because there's a reason behind it. And so that's my son. My son rarely goes to school. I do try to get him out the house, because there was a time in grade 4, I think it was, maybe 6, I don't remember, where the anxiety was so high, it was pretty much agoraphobic. He didn't leave the house for like 6 months straight. So I still would like him to go to school, but I understand when he's like, I can't go today. And he does all of his work. He is, like you said with your daughter, high grades in all his classes.
That's good. Yeah.
So there is a difference. So for anybody listening, know that your kid may not just be skipping. There may be a reason. So talk to them. Have open communication with them. And that goes for any teenager. It doesn't have to just be ones with autism. Any teenager could be feeling so anxious at school because maybe they're being bullied. Maybe there is a course that they're struggling so much with that they feel so stupid in class that they'd rather just not be in it, but they don't want to admit it.
And not every school is the same in terms of level of service and level of support.
Yeah.
My daughter's school now, her high school, is amazing with her, with the support system. We have quarterly meetings. We get her on track, things like that. But there are schools, and she's gone to some of them, that are not good, and they don't understand, and they don't have the budgets, or so they say they don't have the budgets.
Yes.
And parents need to do their homework and their research around that.
Yeah. I find high school is very different, at least in Ontario. High school has been much easier for him as opposed to elementary school. So that's also something maybe to look forward to, is that it's very different.
Yeah, elementary teachers, and I hate to generalize, but I guess I'm going to, they don't understand how to deal with this stuff. They never went to school for that. I don't know. Maybe I'm scarred, as I said, but
yeah. And I mean, you have the same teacher for the whole day. So if your teacher doesn't understand, then the whole day, the whole year is a write-off, really. Whereas in high school, you have a different teacher for pretty much everything. Like, there are some teachers that teach more than one class, but you have different teachers. So maybe you don't connect with one teacher, but you have another one that you can look forward to going and seeing.
True story. And the other problem with that is, at least in the elementary point, to the point you just made, the teacher's there for the whole day with the same individuals. Yes. And if they're not open to interpretation of what their expectations are, for example, this pattern thing I brought up earlier, where my daughter did a pattern, just not the way that they wanted. And if they're not open to looking at that, then it's always going to be a fight all the way through that process.
Yes.
So, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So just, I like what you've said. Do your research, do your reading, and just ask a lot of questions. So early in our journey, like I said, they just kind of kept pushing them into different classrooms because, this social strategies class, it'll be great. And I didn't know much at the time. So I didn't know what to ask. I didn't know what to look for. I was like, okay, it's a small class. Sure. The teacher in that class ended up being amazing. One of the best. Out of all of the school years, there's been 2 that we've liked.
Okay.
So goes to show you something. So she was really good. Yeah. And then, but it still wasn't the best fit. The teacher was good, but the class itself wasn't the best fit. So, there was another class. And so It's just, if you don't know what to ask, you kind of just agree. So what I've learned over the years to say to the school, it's my favorite thing to say to them because they hate it, is let me think about it. I'll get back to you.
Yeah, they don't like that at all.
They don't. They just want an answer right there because they want you. I don't know, but I feel like they want you emotionally charged to just jump at a decision that they say will be good.
Of course, because it's their call and their school, and they think that they're doing right when in reality they don't understand, and it's conflicting.
Exactly. And there's a lot of different things in the Education Act that, the schools, they say one thing and you're like, that's not part of the law. So I give an example just so people understand. Last semester, my kid had math. He's very good at math. But the teacher kept saying that he had to be in class in order to get his grades for tests. And I talked to an educational advocate at Agate Private School. She actually services all over. She's very knowledgeable. She has read the Ontario Education Act from start to finish. So I tell her this. And she goes, nope, there's nothing in our Education Act that says a child has to be at school with a teacher to do a test to get a grade. So, okay. So when I went back to the teacher and I said, nope, that's not going to happen. He agreed, and unfortunately, she still gave him zeros for those tests, but she stopped bugging us to do them. He still passed the course. Unfortunately, it was only with like a 55 on the report card, but every assignment he did was 80s and 90s. So he should have had a much higher grade. But there's only so much fight in a parent, and I figured, you know what? I have fought and we have won the fact that she's not bugging us to go to school anymore. She's letting you do all this stuff at home. Let's move on to the next fight.
Good thing I wasn't there. I just have to say that.
Yeah, it was a lot. It was quite the fight with that teacher. So I count it as a win, even though the report card, but at the same time, he's got the credit. That's all that matters right now. He's got the credit.
That's right.
So.
Yeah, our school plays nice because we had one interaction where I had to come down on them, and ever since that interaction, they've played nice with us.
Yeah, I don't think I'll have issues with that teacher again.
Yeah, no, and you shouldn't have. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I love the education system. I respect teachers for what they do, but end of the day, if you're going to be in this profession and you're going to do this job because it's what you want to do, then you have to work with every walk of life, and autistic kids are part of that.
Exactly. Yep. So we're getting to the end of the show. Very sad.
Oh, okay.
I know, right? Maybe you'll have to join again because I feel like the conversation just started. But we are getting close to the end. And so tell people now at the beginning, you sort of told people what you do, but tell them a little bit more like how to find you, what you can offer, because so Mickey is a special guest. He's not a writer, but he is an amazing publicist. So I was like,
oh, yes. Thanks.
So I was like, come on the show. Yes, let's chit chat.
Yeah. So I represent mostly authors. I do have a musician I signed last week.
Oh, really?
And so we're branching out. I represent a UK musician who's just phenomenal. So I think she's going to go places. Her name is Chloe Rose. But I get book signings for authors. I get the media opportunities, podcasts, print magazines, newspaper, TV. I focus on traditional media senses and build up platforms that way. And that's what I do from a logistics standpoint. So very, very busy. I'm told very cost effective. My company is called Creative Edge Publicity. My website is www.creative-edge.services. And that's what I do. So yeah, it's fun.
Excellent. Yeah. So Mickey's my publicist. He's pretty awesome. So that's cool though that you're branching out into some other things. I like that.
Yeah. Music is next. And I mean, I've had some authors, as you well know, Randi-lee, that are in acting and they've done some stuff. So yeah, it's good.
That's awesome. Yeah, when I was little, I always said I was going to be a famous actor, because I didn't want to pick just one profession. That was going to be too boring. So by being an actor, I could do all professions.
That's awesome. But you're a very good writer. You're a very good writer and a podcast host. So yeah.
Well, that's what I figured. Podcasting, I mean, it's kind of like acting sometimes. I get to put on fun makeup. Definitely. I don't wear this makeup on the street. Not that I wouldn't. You could. Yeah, I could. It just effort, you know. So now I'm building a media empire.
That's awesome. That's
good. Actually, so everyone listening to this episode right now gets the first scoop. I'm gonna have some new shows coming out over the next few months with another host. And I'm hoping I'm trying to get my kid to start his podcast for his business, with the transgender reveal boxes. So some very cool, different. The purpose of it all, though, always inspiration. That's, you know.
I love it. That's amazing.
Yeah, so it's going to be RB Media.
There you go. That's awesome.
So very exciting. That's my breaking news for everyone. Over the next few months, we're going to be having some more shows, some more hosts, some different things happening, which is fun. So yeah, I don't want to be pigeonholed in one thing.
No, you shouldn't. No one ever should. No,
that's why I got on the shelf, right? I got the kids book. I got the nonfiction book. Oh, the scary stories aren't up there yet. I need more shelf space. I ran out.
Well, you can do that soon. It's good.
Yes. So thank you so much for coming on the show. And what is one last piece of advice that you would give to somebody who's listening right now who let's go with education system. They're in the education system and they want to be a really, really good teacher. What's your piece of advice for them?
Just be open to constructive discussion and not be dismissive and think that everything has to follow the same rules of education, because autistic kids don't think that way. Every kid is different. Every kid's mindset is different. And they're all going to provide and learn in different ways, shapes, and manners. But as a teacher, if you can figure out for your student how and what the best way for them to learn is, those kids are going to have more success. And you're going to feel more rewarded as a result of that.
I love that. So again, thank you so much. Everybody can check out what Mickey does at his website. We're going to have the link down in the description below. So be sure to just check it out, share it, because yeah, he's got some amazing authors. Me. He's got some amazing authors that maybe you haven't even heard of yet, or maybe you have and you just want to know a little bit more about them.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on.
You're so welcome. Again, thank you, Mickey, for being on the show. Be sure to check out his link down in the description below, and stay up to date, because he, as much as he's not an author per se, he has so many things on the go. He writes different things. Like, it's not that he doesn't write. He writes press releases and things. That counts. But he's always got some different things on the go. Some really cool authors he's always bringing on. So, follow, stay up to date, because you never know what's going to pique your interest. If you want to support the channel, be sure to check out our merch store. 10% of the proceeds goes back to the Canadian Mental Health Association, as well as we have a Patreon. You get some behind the scenes footage and some first reads at what I'm writing. So be sure to head on over there as well. And remember, the only way to end the stigma of mental health is to speak openly and honestly.